moving, inspiring, redefine moments to create lasting memories. Live events is an experience industry. We were the first to feel the impact of the crisis. We now stand united. We will rise together. With your support, we will experience live again.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Back in Business, the first episode of NLEC Ph web series made possible by our episode partners, Live Events and GLPS Co. Episode partners for production and creatives, Creative Manila, Strat Minds Events, Saga Events, and Extreme Manila. I'm Lexi Schultz. I'll be joining you tonight as we discuss how the industry can return to the normal. And you're joining us in this episode. The web series was supposed to air earlier today, but due to technical glitches, NLEC Ph decided to move it to tonight. One of the objectives of the web series is to create learning opportunities for everyone in the industry. And with that in mind, NLEC deemed it was necessary to post the show so our learning won't be interrupted and you get the most out of your discussions. Now, what happened earlier is just one of the challenges live industry faces as we pivot to digital platforms. Tonight, we'll dive into these roadblocks, learn from experiences, and come out of this episode equipped and prepared. This evening, we will be joined by representatives from the Department of Labor and Employment. From the Department the industry's primary concerns regarding the safety of our workers and modify specific standard operating procedures to follow government-approved methods in the hopes of helping you make sound decisions for your next event. Now, we aim for this episode to be a collaborative and learning opportunity for all. And as we start our learning and unlearning, we encourage everyone to keep an open mind. Take in and sit through all the insights that will be shared today and modify them to fit your situation. Our discussions are guidelines that are for your consideration and planning. And most importantly, we want you to discuss how today's presentations can improve our industry culture and strengthen our relationship with each stakeholder. Now, you feel free to also invite your friends and colleagues to watch so we can all learn together. The comment section is open for your questions, clarifications, feedback, or suggestions for the topics that you want to be discussed in the next episodes. We will also try our best to answer them given the time that we have. Our current situation calls for us to reevaluate the live events industry. National Live Events Coalition Philippines was formed to ensure that no freelancer, supplier, talent, organizer, or agency is ever left behind. Through NLEC, the voices of the people behind the scenes are echoed to spark a national conversation. Today is just one of the testaments that you are heard, and the national government is working with and for our industry's great comeback. To start the discussion, let us please welcome the Interim Vice President of NLEC Ph, Mr. Dennis Maras.
Good evening. Welcome to the first of a series of webinars organized by the National Live Events Coalition PH. These webinars are intended to equip ourselves with knowledge and insights that can help the live events industry as we weather the pandemic and prepare for the new normal, which we hope will come sooner rather than later. The pandemic and the resulting lockdown has actually given us a chance to come together and take stock of our industry. Even as we launch these webinars tonight, other activities are ongoing, aimed at strengthening our relationships with various offices of government and allied fields in the private sector. Arts and entertainment activities are the hardest hit among all the sectors of society, and it is expected that as work resumes, live events will be the last to come back. But expect live events to be back. And in preparation and anticipation of that moment, experts in our field have been busy preparing a reopening guide. Phase 1 and Phase 2 have been completed, produced by event professionals with the guidance of the Interagency Task Force and in accordance and fully compliant with the interim guidelines on workplace prevention and control of COVID-19 of the Departments of Trade and Industry, Labor and Employment, and Health. With the support of this and other government agencies, the next step is figuring out how to get out back there safely. But safety is not the concern of one person or one department alone. For us to be able to reopen the industry and reopen safely, all stakeholders must recognize that their roles extend to ensuring everyone else's safety. The times call for us to learn and to learn with stakeholders as we venture toward our industry's new normal. This series of webinars is just a step in our learning process, hoping to help effectively communicate, reach out, and learn together as an industry. We hope that you will find these webinars helpful and perhaps more importantly, inspiring. So on behalf of the National Live Events Coalition PH, thank you for joining us. We make events, we matter, and we will be back out there and we will be safe. Good evening to everyone.
All right. Once again, thank you very much for that, Mr. Dennis Marasigan. You said some really powerful statements that we matter, that we will be back out there, and that we will be safe. If you're just tuning in, this is the first episode of the NLEC Ph web series. Thank you for joining us this evening. We have a jam-packed discussion ahead, so be sure to stick around. Even before the pandemic, live events was not a government-recognized industry. The people behind the gig economy were initially not included in the beneficiaries of the financial assistance given by government. With the continuous rallying of the alliance, we found an ally in our next speaker. He is the representative of the 4th District of Pangasinan in the lower house. Sitting as the Deputy Majority Leader, he is a member of numerous committees, notably the Committee on Basic Education and Culture and Committee on Tourism. Everyone, please welcome Congressman Christopher De Venecia.
Thank you, Lexi, for that kind introduction. To the distinguished panelists joining us today, Chair Liza Dino Seguera, Chairperson and CEO of the Film Development Council of the Philippines, Dr. Marco Antonio S. Valeros, CFP MPA Medical Officer of the Bureau of Working Conditions from the Department of Labor and Employment, Mr. Nicanor Bon, Chief Labor and Employment Officer, Division Bureau of Working Conditions from the Department of Labor and Employment, Dr. Beverly Lorraine C. Ho, Medical Director, Health Promotion Bureau from the Department of Health, to the leaders, officers, and members of the National Live Events Coalition Philippines, who put together this series of amazing panels, to the stakeholders in the live events industry, and to everyone watching this web series from all over the country. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm pleased to virtually welcome you all to the first ever episode of the web series by the National Live Events Coalition PH entitled Back in Business. Creative industries form the socio-economic bedrock of most progressive countries around the world. We look towards the experiences of countries like South Korea, the United Kingdom, the rest of the European Union, the Americas, some of our neighboring countries in the ASEAN, and the Greater Pacific region on how they've galvanized their creative industries towards socio-economic growth. It's interesting to note as well that the creative industry experience of South Korea started in the wake of the 1997 Asian financial crisis under the leadership of Kim Dae-jung, as the nation started pivoting towards new growth areas and capitalizing on its inherent strengths, innovation, and creativity. As propelled by the intensive studies of the Creative Economy Council of the Philippines, headed by the great Paulo Mercado, we have come to arrive at the following assumptions. 1, that creative economy is an economy based on original and innovative ideas that generate value through the trade and exchange of products or goods, services, content, and intellectual property. Number 2, that its core sectors include art, design, entertainment, media, and innovation. Yes, this includes science and technology. It's no wonder that even when the Duterte administration crafted its 10-point socioeconomic agenda, creative arts was aggregated with science and technology at number 8. Number 3, that global estimates of this burgeoning industry is at $2.3 trillion and employs about 30 million workers and is a sector growing faster than agriculture, manufacturing, and services. Number 4, that Asia Pacific is among its biggest contributors, led by China, Japan, and of course, South Korea. And that within the ASEAN, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia have made creative economy a top priority by establishing formal government structures and strategic roadmaps that would provide an enabling environment for private-public partnerships to drive socioeconomic transformation and accelerated growth. Number 5, that in the Philippines, creative industries have been thriving independently of each other and with little to no support from the public sector. And number 6, that the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, or UNCTAD, reports that our creative exports are at 3.2 billion US dollars in creative services, making the Philippines number 1 in the ASEAN region. Though there's need for more improvement in our creative goods sector, which stands at only 915 million US dollars. The recommendation from creative industry experts is that we double down on the Philippines' comparative advantage, that is, in the creative services sector, to which live events belongs, while not losing sight of bolstering the sale, scale, and export of our creative goods. The live events industry firmly and indefatigably belongs to the unique, albeit still broad, dispersed, and undefined ecosystem of our creative economy. This is something that we in Congress are endeavoring to solidify and figure out in the next 2 years through legislation, oversight, and constant consultation and collaboration with stakeholders in the public and the private sector. During these distressing times, I'm comforted by the fact that the resiliency of the live events industry pushes on. Though the pandemic has given us a lot of unprecedented struggles, this industry is also said to be the last to bounce back and recover. However, the sector has continuously showed initiative and advocated solutions and policy recommendations to aid and innovate the sector and move the industry forward. It goes without saying that coping with the economic repercussions of COVID-19 has not been easy for all those affected. For what it's worth, I hope you find solace in the fact that you have an ally or a group of allies in Congress who will hear out your concerns and champion policies that will help you not only survive the pandemic, but thrive beyond it. Together, we can pursue short-term, medium-term, and long-term changes that will help the creative economy reach its fullest potential. Of course, it's no secret that most of the workforce in the live events industry belong to the freelance sector or the gig economy. So when ARISE, or the stimulus bill, was being deliberated in Congress, through NLEC's successful lobbying, it was able to solidify a provision granting for wage subsidies to freelancers all the way to its third and final reading. The same was included through FDCP and NLEC's intensive lobbying in the Senate, even expanding the scope of the subsidy and directing the DILG and the Anti-Red Tape Authority to look into the relaxation of the prohibitive amusement tax that has imperiled the live events industry more so today in the climate of the new normal. I have also witnessed firsthand how NLEC has persevered in reaching out to government agencies like the Department of Tourism, the Department of Trade and Industry, the Film Development Council of the Philippines, the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, the Department of Health, the Department of Labor and Employment, and many other agencies in order to build rapport and establish awareness of this industry that was most heavily impacted by COVID-19. But more than all that, it was able to establish representation. In matters of policy, it's about being in the room where it happens, as quoted from the musical Hamilton, and having a voice. Today, because of NLEC, the live events industry has a voice and is finally heard. As somebody who firmly believes in the power of industry and the private sector to work hand in hand with government, albeit socially distanced for now, to recharter our nation's trajectory towards business unusual, where creative industries are finally at the forefront you can be certain that you will have an ally in Congress rooting for you and helping you as best I can every step of the way. We in Congress are currently working on a portfolio of measures to ensure the welfare of creative industries and its workers, like the live event sector. A freelance protection bill, which has been consolidated alongside other bills in the technical working group and will now be presented to the committee, aims to provide protection and welfare to freelancers who comprise majority of the live events workforce. This is also an opportunity to help migrate our heroic workers to join the formal economy. A measure intended to formally restructure the amusement tax to be more favorable towards stakeholders in the creative industry. Another measure to institutionalize cultural heritage mapping in the LGUs, upon which they can exact ideas for their socio-economic agenda, like tourism programs, festivals, and the like. Several measures in support of the screen sector as well as the music sector, and many others that are emerging with each of our consultations. Be that as it may, I cannot stress enough how vital NLEC has been in providing leadership during these crucial times. Leadership. I can't stress this word enough. Leadership, leadership, leadership. It is what is going to get the live events industry through this pandemic, into the new normal, and whatever situation comes its way in the future. And I am honored and proud and humbled to be working with NLEC as a policymaker, as a collaborator, as a stakeholder, and as a friend. Before I end, I'd like to leave everyone with a quote from William Blake, an English poet. According to him, what is now proved was once only imagined. Thus, to the live events industry, continue to imagine and prove what you are capable of. It all boils down to leadership, and NLEC is certainly not lacking in this regard. Again, congratulations, and I look forward to the rest of these web episodes. May it be of service and help to you, the viewers, and to everyone as well. Good evening.
With that, we'd like to thank you very much, Congressman Tof Devanesha. Again, we'd like to say hello to all of our viewers out there. And in our first discussion, we will be tackling the safety measures that stakeholders must take to resume office operations. This discussion highlights the responsibilities and roles of both the employers and the employees in ensuring a safe working environment following the government-sanctioned guidelines. Our first speaker is a member of the Technical Working Group on drafting DOLE policies on IRR of the Occupational Safety and Health Law and the DOLE DTI guidelines for COVID-19. Here's Medical Officer 4 of the Bureau of Working Conditions of the Department of Labor and Employment, Dr. Marco Antonio Valeros.
Good afternoon, partners. I am here to discuss how do we apply OSH in the new normal setting. Business for some essential goods and services has started, and I am positive that the live events would follow suit. But as of now, I understand that the back office operation has started. So I think this presentation will still be useful for them and for the future once that the live events would be allowed to operate. So here in my first slide, you can see here the provisions in the 1987 Philippine Constitution on safety and health of our workers. So we have at least 3 provisions here that provides for the protection and humane working conditions for our country's workers. So we have at least 3 legal bases here in the slides. We have, of course, as mentioned, the 1987 Philippine Constitution, the Labor Code of the Philippines, particularly Book 4, and its IRR, Occupational Safety and Health Standards. And for this presentation, of course, I am citing at least 4 related laws and issuances that is COVID-19 related. Number 1 is RA 11058. Ito po yung OSH Law. 11165, the Telecommuting Act. Of course, 11036, yung Mental Health Act, and DTI DOLE Interim Guidelines for COVID-19. So why 11165 sa Telecommuting Act? Kahit po naka-work from home, ang mga kumpanya ay nire-require pa rin na yung mga workers po nila ay magkaroon pa rin po na occupational safety and health program. So, what is OSH standards? Ito po yung mandatory rules sa occupational safety and health which codifies all safety orders issued prior to its promulgation. So, inipon po lahat ito at ipinartern po mula po sa standards ng mga developed na mga bansa. Ang primary objective po nito, of course, is for the protection of all workers. When we say all workers, wala po tayong, it cuts all, all types of workers, no? Walang boundaries. Kay private yan, kay public, kay formal, informal, even po yung mga freelancers, pasok po dyan, ano? Dapat protected po kayo. Okay? Of course, ang coverage, all workplaces. Ayan. So, dito po, kahit po ang DOLE, limited lang po yung jurisdiction namin pagdating po sa batas kasi nagkikater lang kami sa private companies. Pero po, sa public sector naman, ay nariyan naman po yung Civil Service Commission. At pagdating naman po sa mga formal, informal, marami pong ahensya na gobyerno na nagtutulong-tulong po sa inyo. Even yung mga freelancers po. I think may mga batas po tayong nakahain na para po sa inyo. So ito po yung mga duties and rights po ng mga manggagawa, no? Mga workers alike at of course mga employers. Sa employers po, para po sa kanila, nire-require po sila ng batas na mag-provide ng capacity building. When say capacity building, it refers to orientation, to trainings, yan, ng mga empleyado nila. Provide information on occupational safety and health. Okay? Kaya IEC material yan. Kahit po webinar, okay, kailangan na ma-provide po yan sa kanila. Okay? Yung mga devices at equipment na gagamitin, dapat pasado po yan sa industry standards, no? So, sa mga sa live events, no, kung gumagamit po tayo ng mga scaffoldings, dapat po ay nasa standards po yung mga diameter po niyan, yung magtatayo niyan, dapat po ay TESDA accredited, no? Meron siyang NC2, Certified Erector. Pagdating naman po sa mga PPE, dapat appropriate siya. Of course, libre. Wala po dapat na ilalabas na gastusin yung mga workers pagdating po sa personal protective equipment. Ano naman po yung mga karapatan po ng manggagawa, sang-ayon po sa batas. Of course, karapatan po nila malaman ang iba't ibang uli po ng hazards po, no? Sa kanila pong pinagtatrabahuhan. Ma-providean po sila ng training, education, at orientation on occupational safety and health. To refuse unsafe work in cases of imminent danger. To report accidents and dangerous occurrences. Ayan. So, bago po ito sa batas po, dati kasi yung mga safety officers po ang nag-report po sa amin, pero dito po, in-empower na po sila. Okay? So, ito naman po, yung silent features nung Department Order 198. Actually, ito po yung IRR ng OSH Law, yung 11058. Dito po, nire-require po yung establishment na mag-develop po at mag-implement ng mga occupational safety and health program. Okay? So, sa mga nakapagpasa na po sa amin, no, sa DOLE, nire-require po kayo na i-update po siya to include yung COVID-19 program. How do we address that? Okay? Ang National Live Events Coalition of the Philippines naman ay meron po silang manual at maganda na i-partner nyo po doon yung mga gagawin nyo pong programa. All covered workplaces shall have qualified OSH personnel for the following. Una po, safety officer, physician, dentist, nurse, and first aiders. Yung number and type of OSH personnel po, nakabase po yan sa risk, no? Sa hazard risk nung kumpanya. Kung low risk siya, medium risk, kung high risk. Okay? Mas maraming empleyado, mas mataas yung risk niya, mas marami pong mga occupational safety and health personnel na kailangan. Bakit po naka-highlight itong safety officer po natin? Pagdating po kasi sa COVID, napakalaki po ng role po niya. Siya po yung parang chief implementer ng batas po, no, sa workplace. Siya yung titingin kung napapatupad ba ng maayos yung mga programa. Okay? So, formation of Health and Safety Committee. Kailangan din naman, of course, ng safety officer natin ang katuwang sa pag-i-implement ng batas, paggagawa ng mga polisiya. Requirement din po sa batas na mag-submit po tayo ng report sa DOLE. At of course, pagdating po dito sa penalty provision, we also reserve po yung pag-i-impose po nito sa mga employer na matitigas ang ulo, no? Yung mga na-call mo na yung attention and yet hindi pa rin po nagpa-follow sa recommendation. Ang tawag po sa batas doon, yung willful failure to comply with the requirements of the law. For as long as wala naman pong namatay, walang nagkasakit po ng malubha, na disgrasya ng malubha, wala naman po tayong pag-uusapan po na multa kasi kami po sa DOLE, of course yung DTI, pagdating po sa COVID-19, we are more of yung sa assistive o yung pag-render po ng technical assistance po, no? Pero of course, kailangan din talaga na mag-follow po ng sa recommendation po namin ang mga establishmento. Okay? Pagdating naman po dito sa joint and solidary liability, I was happy, no, nang na-browse ko po kasi yung manual ng NLEC Ph, nakita po natin doon na pati mga contractors at subcontractors ay inuobliga po nila na sumunod po, no, sa mga regulations, sa protocols na inilatag po nila. Tama naman po iyon kasi po sang-ayon po sa batas, kapag ikaw ay principal, meron ka mga contractor at subcontractor, at kapag itong mga contractors at subcontractors mo ay hindi po sumusunod sa batas, no, maaari pong madamay ka pag ikaw ang principal. So maganda po, no, na meron tayong tinatawag po, no, na self-regulation sa loob po ng kumpanya na hindi na kinakailangan pang pumasok ni DOLE, ng DTI o kung kahit po ng LGU o kung sino man po yung mga regulators para mapasunod po natin ang mga employer po, even yung mga workers po na hindi po sumusunod sa mga alituntunin po ng batas. So dito na po tayo, no, sa components of DTI, DOLE Interim Guidelines for COVID-19. So ito po yun, ano? Number one, of course, increase physical and mental resilience. We take cognizance, of course, of the holistic nature of man, ano? Hindi lamang po yung physical, we also consider yung mental well-being ng mga individuals, no? So dito po, even yung mental health, idinidiin po natin na dapat kasama po ito sa programa po nila. Of course, kasama din po dito yung how do we reduce yung transmission sa COVID-19. So prior sa entrance ng building, meron po tayong no mask, no entry policy. Pag-accomplish po ng health symptom questionnaire, pagkuha ng temperature. Of course, may isolation area wherein yung mga nadidetect na parang may mga sakit, hindi pwedeng pumasok, temporarily ilalagay doon before sila ma-assess ng clinic staff nila. At of course, yung mga disinfectant foot baths na sa entrance. Okay, inside the workplace, of course, dapat may disinfection protocol. Yung mga high-touch areas, tulad ng doorknobs, telephone, dapat every 2 hours at a minimum nalilinis siya. Availability of sufficient clean water and soap sa washroom nila. Availability of sanitizers sa mga high-traffic areas, tulad ng mga nabanggit dito sa screen. Yung physical distancing at a minimum, it should be at least 1 meter, no? Lagpas sa 1 meter, better. Pero hindi po dapat tayo mas maikli doon sa 1 meter na nire-require ng batas. Proper disposal ng waste, okay? Lalo na yung mga face mask, ibalit po sila sa plastic bago itapon. Of course, dapat may segregation. At dapat lagi kina-check din yung canteen at saka yung kitchen po ng establishment natin. Okay? Then, minimize, how do we minimize contact rate? Okay, so ano po tayo, mag-implement ng skeletal workforce at maximum na po itong 50% at any given period. Pwede po tayo mag-staggered, no? Kung 100% ang papapasukin natin, pwedeng in 2 shifts po sila. Okay, pero as much as possible, the leaner, the better. Kung pwede naman mag-work from home, we advise na mag-implement po ng work from home arrangement. Yung mga meetings po, dapat ginagawa po yan ng maikli lang at of course, minimum din yung number of participants. When we say short duration, it should be 15 minutes or less. Pagka marami na po yung participants na inaasahan natin, video conferencing, pwede siyang pong i-consider po, no? Pag mahaba yung meeting, i-minimize din po natin yung interaction with clients. At of course, pagpasok po sa mga elevators at sa mga closed areas, dapat ino-observe pa rin natin yung social distancing. At of course, sa kumpanya, iniwasan din natin na bumiyahe sila ng bumiyahe kasi of course, mahirap dahil sa posibilidad na ma-expose sila sa sakit na ito. So, why OSH po? Bakit po natin kailangan magpatupad ng occupational safety and health sa atin pong mga workplaces? Of course, na-improve yung working conditions ng mga workers. Pagka maganda yung working conditions nila, alam nila na safe and healthy sila doon sa lugar nila, mabubus yung moral po nila, no? Yung anxiety nila na-address. It sustains, maintains productivity dahil wala silang alalahanin, nagiging productive po sila. Of course, na-enhance din yung company's reputation, yung credibility nila, and of course, yung competitiveness. And lastly, it achieves harmonious relationship doon sa workplace po. So, ang summary and conclusion po natin, pagdating po sa occupational safety and health, mayroon po tayo enough legal basis to implement this. Of course, ang health and safety ng mga manggagawa, it's everybody's responsibility. Tripartite po yan, government, employers, and employees alike. No? Meron po tayong responsibility to implement OSH. OSH is not one-size-fits-all policy. Of course, ini-encourage po namin kayo na mag-develop ng inyong sariling policy, but of course, it should adapt yung mga applicable provision po sa batasan, no? At kung mag-debate tayo ng kaunti, of course, you need to inform us to assist you. Okay? OSH implementation is a must in this new normal. Okay? So, kalimutan niyo na po lahat ng sinabi ko po kanina. Huwag niyo lang po kalimutan itong mga contact details po namin dito sa screen po namin. Kasi, of course, maaring sa question and answer natin mamaya, hindi nyo maitanong ang lahat ng mga gusto nyong itanong. At least po dito, marami po tayong avenues para po makapag-connect po kayo sa amin. Muli, magandang hapon po muli sa atin pong lahat.
Thank you, Dr. Valeros. Our current situation made us look at health and safety from a very different perspective. It is reassuring to be reminded that it is in the law that workers have the right to demand, to be educated, and to be provided with a safe working environment before, during, and after the pandemic. The DTI-DOLE guidelines on workplace prevention and control of COVID-19, which was the basis of NLECPh's reopening guidelines, confirms and reassures us that resuming work with our safety prioritized is possible. But this doesn't mean that as workers, we are not responsible for the safety of the workplace. Safety is everyone's responsibility. The government, employers, and employees have roles in ensuring everybody's well-being. I hope that Dr. Valeros' presentation inspired you to reevaluate your company's occupational safety and health programs. If you haven't yet, register your establishments and develop your own safety programs. You may reach out to DOLE for guidance as you update your own safety programs. If you have clarifications or questions that you want to raise, type them in the comment section and we will try to address them later on in the program. Like NLECPh Secretariat Facebook page for updates on the industry and the upcoming web series episodes after this one. For those who are just tuning in, this is the first episode of NLECPh's web series. In our first discussion, the Department of Labor and Employment reviewed the safety guidelines for the workplace and the occupational safety and health standards. Now we go to our next topic for discussion in relation to DOLE's presentation. We are joined by the Department of Health to talk about the minimum health standards that must be observed to mitigate COVID-19, especially in workspaces. Our next speaker serves as the Chief Policy Advisor to the Secretary of Health on UHC implementation, develops strategies to catalyze reform initiatives, ensures alignment of reform initiatives between the DOH, PhilHealth, and attached agencies, and engages in various stakeholders to facilitate uptake of UHC policies, plans, and programs. Please welcome Medical Director 4 of the Health Promotion and Communication of the Department of Health, Dr. Beverly Lorraine C. Ho.
Everyone. On behalf of the DOH, thank you for giving us a platform to further our collective work on minimum health standards, our tool to keep us healthy and safe while there is no vaccine yet. Allow me to use this opportunity to highlight 3 important things. First, we need to adapt to a new lifestyle, a new mindset, one which requires heightened vigilance. Second, we should not feel helpless because we know what works. There is evidence of what can protect us and what does not. Wearing masks protects us 85% of the time, physical distancing by 82%, face shield or eye protection by 78%. And for that 15 to 22% of the time, let's stay home so we don't unduly expose ourselves. But what if we need to work? That's where my 3rd point comes in. We want to restart the economy, and to be able to successfully do this, we all need to make going and being at work safe so that our opening is going to be sustained and not bumpy. To do this requires us to keep in mind that some people are more at risk, some areas are more at risk, and some activities are more at risk. Recognizing that events with a live audience are considered to be a high-risk activity because of the duration of the activity, the number of participants, the nature of that the activity entails. Hence, we are happy to have collaborated with DOLE, FDCP, and NLEC on the guidelines, which was based on DOH AO 2020-0015 issued way back in April. However, it is also important to highlight that the intent of such an issuance is not to put us all in boxes, but basically to serve as a basis for organized groups like yours to customize it to their specific industries, building on the minimum specified in the JAO. Feel free to step up, but not step down from the minimum standards. I'd like to end by quoting a medical anthropologist from Johns Hopkins University. She said, "People will change their behavior if there are 3 conditions in place. They know what to do, why to do it, and see other people like themselves also doing it." My appeal to everyone in this webinar, magtulungan tayo. Let us make the environments conducive for our people to practice the healthy behaviors. Let us innovate continuously, and finally, let us motivate each other to be role models wherever we are. Let us be the solution to COVID-19. Thank you very much.
Very much for that, Dr. Ho. It's a very interesting discussion on the minimum health standards that must be in place, especially in the workplace. In her presentation, it was mentioned that protecting everyone's well-being is shared accountability, meaning it is not the government's sole responsibility, or neither is it the employers. Everyone in the community must take accountability for safety. Now, to understand the safety guidelines and protocols and keep updated on the COVID-19 mitigation, you may check out the websites of the Department of Health, the World Health Organization, and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Again, this is the NLEC Ph web series. Just to recap, earlier we had Dole discuss the occupational safety and health standards and guidelines for employers and employees as the live events industry gradually returns to business. DOH laid down the minimum health standards that must be observed in both offices and event venues to maintain both workers' and audience's safety. Take a look at this summary of the key points of the 2 presentations. For instance, for sources of information for laws, you can refer to Republic Act 11058 and the IATF. For standards, we can refer to the Bureau of Working Conditions, the Occupational Safe and Health Standards, and Joint Administrative Order. Of course, there are also codes that you can refer to. You can refer to the Labor Code, the Fire Code as well. In terms of guidelines, you can refer to NLECPh safety guidelines. As for employer guidelines, you can refer to Health, Safety, Security, and the Environment Plan and Event safety plan. And the first part to safety is, of course, education. It's educating. And the next step would be to address the points in complying to safety. If you don't know what to do, how do you stay safe? You have to create policy and procedure. Now, some people, they don't understand why these safety protocols have to be in place. What's important to do is to educate. Again, as we said, you have to do training. Now, sometimes some people, some establishments don't necessarily have the tools, what they need. You need to provide resources like equipment and proper PPEs. Now, sometimes people will feel like it's a discomfort to them, let's say to wear a mask. Why do I need to do it? You have to make consultations available so that they will understand the exact reasons why we are doing these things, especially during the time of a pandemic. Now, it takes more time for these things. It's not the usual thing because, again, the pandemic is one of these things that it's out of our control. Now, you have to schedule management. You have to understand why we need to do these certain things. Now, some people are very averse to change. What can we do? We can help them by perhaps coaching them and making them realize that this is practically the new normal for us. Now, if you don't like being told what to do, like many of us maybe, you need open communication with employers, with employees, and I know that a lot of protocols from government are in place to educate everybody as well. Now, if you simply don't want to, that's already a question of self-discipline. There are fines and penalties in place, so we need to sort of, know that these are the things that we need to do at this point. Now, those were very insightful presentations from our guest speakers. I know you might have some clarifications that you'd want to ask them, so type in your questions in the comments section. We will try to answer them now. At this point, we'd like to welcome back Dr. Beverly Lorraine C. Ho once again. And joining Dr. Ho is the Chief Labor and Employment Officer of the Bureau of Working Conditions of the Department of Labor and Employment, Mr. Nicanor V. Bon. Thank you for joining us. All right, so let me start the ball rolling with the first question. How do we find the balance in prioritizing worker safety and health and at the same time continuing with business operations?
Why is this important? We know that there's no vaccine yet, so there's no way to prevent us from having COVID. No, that natural immunity that we should have, or acquired immunity from a vaccine, rather. But with minimum health standards, it's actually a set of protocols that includes, say, what individual behavior would be, but also what is the responsibility of the establishment in making sure that the area or the workplace is actually conducive. No, so the minimum health standards is going to be a collective effort of us as individuals, the employees, the people who will be going to the event, but also by the establishment hosting the event. And needless to say, sabi ko nga kanina, diba, when you go to and from an event or to and from your workplace, then the transportation also has to be safe. No? So in that case, the national government has also put in place mechanisms for that. You will see our LRT, MRT stations, they're all being modified in order to accommodate this new setup. So I would say that it's going to be hard because it's not as simple as, okay, let's buy something and put it in place. It's not that. The minimum health standards will really require change in behavior from every one of us. So no one can say, oh, it's because my employer wasn't able to do it. Oh, because the organizer of the concert wasn't able to do it. We all have a role to play in making sure this transition is facilitated. And so what we have produced, along with several other government agencies, are guidelines for which the private sector, the employers can start applying and even improve it further.
But at this point, a lot of offices are opening up. And again, as we said, apart from the event space, it's also the offices of all of the people who are coordinating all of these events. Now, are employers required to provide COVID testing for employees before resuming business, as we are slowly starting to get back into that? Or can workers demand their employers for testing?
So our national government policy is it's not a requirement to get tested prior to going back to work, no? And the medical professionals have all endorsed a guideline, which is what they call the 14-day test, right? It's a 14-day symptom test. So basically, once you're going back to work, you get asked whether in the last 14 days you have had symptoms. And if you've had symptoms, then you'll have to wait out a 14-day quarantine period before you start going to work. Otherwise, if you're symptom-free the last 14 days, then you're free to go back to work. So there's no requirement for you to go to have testing prior to going to work. However, it's only going to be mandatory for you to get regular testing if you're part of, say, a healthcare workforce wherein you'll be constantly exposed in the line of duty. Then there are guidelines on the frequency of how often you're going to be tested. So frontline health workers, but not all of them, at least those who are caring directly for COVID-19 patients, most of them are going to be required like every 14 days to have their tests done.
Well, a lot of companies have also chosen to sort of split the workforce. Some people will be going to the office, so there are less people involved. And a lot of people will still be or have chosen to still work from home because it is something that they are allowed to do at this point. Now, is the DOLE DTI interim guidelines on workplace prevention and control of COVID-19 also applicable to the work from home setup?
So I would say principles wise, you can apply most of it, no? So you can work from home, but your home is also a setting, right? Wherein you have family members coming in and going out. And if possible, the principles underlying all of these minimum health standards are basically the same, no? So wearing of masks, physical distancing, frequent sanitizing, and then making sure that anyone, whether in workplace, at home, in public place that has symptoms, immediately has to isolate himself or herself.
But with a virtual office as well, how can you check if it's DOLE compliant?
Well, first of all, it really depends what type of work we're talking about, right? So if you're saying at home you have a computer screen and you're doing a certain video editing, etc., then you have very minimal requirements to fulfill, right? But then if you're talking about working from home but congregating some of the workforce at home, then it might be more challenging to actually regulate that, no? And that's why we need other partners to help us regulate, no? So the national government agency cannot go and every day check up on everyone. And so part of this is actually a lot of social responsibility. We have asked in the JAO to submit certain reports, right? And that's part of what we want most of the most of the private sector and even some public sector agencies to do, submit reports, at least especially for highly critical activities. And this is the reason why, because we also need to prioritize what we need to inspect and oversee more than the others.
Well, as you said a while ago, it's really a joint effort between the government, the employers, and the employees. So what if employees sort of find safety protocol violations within their workplaces? How do they report these incidents, and can they, and should they?
I think I will defer this question to Dole.
Yes, Lexi, if there are complaints or non-compliance, workers may report the same with the nearest DOLE office so that the DOLE can act on it.
And where Sir Bon, can they reach out? DOLE do they have many offices everywhere? Is it best to start online? How do they reach the DOLE?
Yes, they can visit the nearest regional, provincial, or field offices. In Metro Manila, we have so many field offices, so they can visit them, or they can report, they can call, they can email us, or any communications. They can do it anonymously or otherwise. They can report to us any violations or non-compliance with the safety and health protocols.
Mr. Bon, now that things have been opening up again, within DOLE, have you gotten a lot of complaints? Or are we finding that, a lot of the offices are sticking to the protocols and they have all of the safety protocols in place?
there is an ongoing monitoring inspection in coordination with DTI. So we find some violations, and of course we are there to assist companies to comply. So that's the primary purpose. Help them out how they can comply with the safety and health protocols enforced, issued by different government agencies and through the directives of the IATF.
And sir, are you finding that a lot of people have really gone back to not virtual offices and not working from home, but back to their actual offices? Or do you find that it's really a shift or a split between those working from home and those who are actually back to the physical offices?
As of now, we have regulations to that. I think that it depends on the community quarantine. Like in Manila, in NCR, it's still basically 30% in some establishments. So we have to comply with the directives of the IATF and other government agencies like the requirements of DOH, DTI, etc. So there is really a need to comply with these requirements of the government.
Right, because at this point, COVID-19 is still not completely known to us. It's still very fluid, the situation. We don't know, in fact, like a question I'm going to throw to Doc Bev now is about it being airborne. Because, we still, to this day, are not 100% sure that it is airborne. And if it is, being in an office space maybe is not the safest, or unless you have all of the safety protocols in place. So Doc Bev, maybe you can talk to us about its airborne capability, or if it's not conclusive yet.
Okay, so there are basically 5 modes of transmission that we're talking about for any particular infectious disease. And so far, what we're sure about, meaning we have concrete evidence, are 3, So direct contact, so that's kissing, hugging, right? And then next would be droplet transmission, which is what we know, like when you cough, when you sneeze. And the third would be touching of frequently touched surfaces, right? So you touch someone with the virus and you touch that place. So basically, we're very sure of these 3 things. What are we not sure about? Airborne transmission and fecal oral transmission, meaning if someone ate it and then it went through the water, whatever. So those 2 things, we still have no solid evidence. But at this point in time, 6 months into finding out about this virus, what we're sure of is that we can't rule out anything, right? So it's still possible at the end of the day, But what we're talking about is if we have evidence of the first 3 modes of transmission, then we're sure we can protect ourselves from the first 3. So what have we done? So that's why even before WHO actually recommended wearing masks, we already recommended it as a country. What would say having certainty that airborne transmission happens, how will it change our guidelines? So basically, I think that's going to be the question. As of this time, we know that the COVID-19 droplets are big, So because they're big, they can travel far and they can stay afloat in air for longer periods of time. If they become smaller and smaller, that's when you talk about staying afloat in air for a longer period of time. But the big droplets can already become smaller now in healthcare setting. This is what you read about, that, COVID-19 is aerosolized in the hospital setting. And this is why, compared to us, regular people going out, we just wear the regular mask or even the cloth mask. In a healthcare facility, you actually have them wear the N95, Kasi you already are assuming that maybe there's a form of airborne transmission, but that because of aerosolization, parang lumiliit yung mga droplets. But in the setting where we're working, office, outdoors, it hasn't been proven pa. So perhaps what will change significantly is the way the mask that we will be wearing. It will change because the particles, if they get smaller and smaller, then we have to wear the more fitting mask. What else? we might significantly change guidelines on ventilation. Kasi now we talk about well-ventilated space, aircon is still okay, but we're not being very strict about how often do you change the filters for these air conditions, etc. No? But these are things that might change if we are going to be very certain about airborne transmission. Kaya then we don't want people to panic, no? As long as there's no guidance, we focus on the initiatives or the protective factors that we are sure about. Because if we're talking about airborne transmission, serious implications siya on all of the resources that we're going to be needing. And as of this time, there's really no solid evidence yet on it.
All right.
And sorry, I think my last reassuring point there is that in the hospital setting, recent studies have shown that, say for example in China, they have actually gone for around 4 months wherein in a hospital setting, no healthcare worker has been infected. No, and this has been published in a very rigorous scientific literature, which just tells us that it's possible to be protected. No, it's possible to have the full set of suit and you will be protected.
Well, in terms of the workers going back to the workforce, going back to their physical offices, it is not, the DOH doesn't say that it is necessary to get tested, but in terms of the rapid testing, because it's also a bit controversial in terms of the accuracy of the rapid test. So does the DOH recommend rapid tests for those returning back to work?
No. So we follow the guidelines issued by all of our medical societies. So various medical societies are one in their stand on it. In the DOH guidelines, there is colatilia that says you can do rapid testing as long as they're validated and of good accuracy so that you don't get confused with the results. But as of this time, there are actually no locally validated rapid antibody test kits that are out in the market. So you will really just have to in a way, guess or be comfortable with the level of uncertainty if you're going to use it. And that's why from the DOH standpoint, we know that the employers are also cash-strapped because of what happened. And so if it's all about channeling your resources, you better channel your resources to making sure that the workplaces are, your employees have masks, diba? That you have alcohol in place, you have soap and water, yun na lang, no? And maybe flu vaccine also if you want to give benefits. But the reality is the antibody test has little benefit to return to work.
Well, in terms of, because we're also talking about with NLEC, we also champion the freelancer. So maybe I can go to Mr. Bon. As a freelancer, how can the DOLE DTI interim guidelines be applied to them? Because if they don't really have any direct employers, how will that be able to apply to them?
It's clear in the joint memorandum circular that even the so-called talent, the independent contractors are covered so long as he or she is in the workplace. So every worker, whether he is dependent or not, is covered by the regulations, by the safety and health protocols. And we see a case in point, even the talented, our actor, the deceased actor was, that's a case in point, what happened to that character actor. So any worker for that matter, including the freelancer, is covered by our safety and health protocols in any workplace.
Thank you for clearing that up, Mr. Bon. I think it's very important for the freelancer to also feel protected because sometimes they feel very alone. And it's good to know that as a talent, they are still protected by all of these guidelines. Now, again, much as we are in the virtual space and we're doing okay, when do you think, maybe Doc Bev can answer this, when is it safe to conduct mass gatherings? Because right now, we're only really allowed to see gatherings of up to maybe 10. I'm not sure if that's the correct number at this point, but when do you feel that mass gatherings, live events will come back to the fore?
So what we have in our guidelines now, in general, yes, for GCQ, the participants will only be allowed 50% of the venue or seating capacity, no? So public gatherings, not limited to movie screenings, concerts, sporting events, and other entertainment activities, community assemblies, non-essential work gatherings, this rule applies, no? So basically, our advice is let's err on the side of caution. If we could have innovative mechanisms to not hold live events with the mass gathering, then that's actually preferred, no? Especially because you might have a big venue, but the entrance and exit, those are things that you actually need to take note of, no? So the entire parang workflow of the people who are going to attend the event. So we're hoping that with loosening of our GCQ to MGCQ and eventually to even the low risk category, then we might be able to allow mass gatherings. But as of this time, hindi pa po pwede.
Okay, so maybe we can just get final thoughts on, because we need industry to move forward, and we're all here to help each other, but still keep the safety protocols in place. So maybe since you're already there, we'll start with you, Doc Bev, on your final thoughts on the situation and what we can do to just all help each other out.
So thank you. Thank you to everyone who's been supporting the work on minimum health standards. I guess what we need to be, we are very humble with this entire process. No, this is the first time that the entire world is experiencing this whole thing. No, so there's no formula to this, and so we are also parang slowly putting things in place. And when we talk about monitoring and reporting, the reason why these are in place is because we want to continuously update the guidelines, diba? If you're reporting and saying, and we are finding from the reporting that, because we put these things in place, then we're getting less and less infection, then we can probably relax the guidelines further. But if we don't have those data, then it will be difficult for your government to act on it, diba? Because at the end of the day, our job is to make sure Filipinos are safe and healthy. So yun lang, I think kasi most of the issues that we're getting in terms of the guidelines are with regard to submitting monitoring reports, that it's tedious. But we're finding out now, because of yung mga clustering of cases in workplaces, it's actually very useful for us. Also, our epidemiologists who are investigating these cases, na saan ba yung lapses, no? And what are the common lapses? Para we put in stronger guidelines for those. Ito naman sa wala namang masyadong lapses or parang mas acceptable na i-loosen, then we will do those adjustments. So yun lang, yun yung more appeal namin. And then you, the industry leaders who are listening, you know your industry better. And we won't claim to know your industry better. So we're just really happy that some of you have really stepped up to make sure that the guidelines are more in sync for your industry. Yun lang, yung appeal lang namin is step up more than the minimum standards, not step down. So yun lang, we're always open to feedback, so feel free to drop us an email and our team will be happy to serve you. Thank you.
Now we can move over as well to Mr. Bon. I mean, Doc Bev was saying exactly that there are clusters in some of the office spaces, right? And at least, what are your thoughts on this, Sir Nick? And how can we also help each other out when it comes to from DOLE's end?
Yes, as mentioned a while ago by Dr. Mark, the safety and health of our people, of our workers, is everyone's responsibility. The government, the DOLE in particular, is doing its part. So we are also urging companies and the workers alike to do their share. Like the companies, we need the safety officers to do their responsibility. There should be a safety and health committee to monitor the safety and health programs of the company. And the workers as well should comply with the rules and regulations pertaining to these protocols. So that would be all.
All right. With that, we'd like to thank again our speakers, Mr. Bon and Dr. Beverly Ho, for joining us in this first episode of the NLEC Ph web series. Now, DOLE and DOH have confirmed and reassured us that live events are on their way back. We are equipped with the necessary guidelines that shall help in making sound decisions for your next event. With that, the only next step for us is to get back out there with these new types of event productions: virtual event production, multi-platform event production, and soon hybrid event production. The live events industry is continuously innovating given the challenges we are facing today. It is in our core to venture new ways of making experiences possible. And as we face the biggest drawback, the industry remains hopeful and creative despite it all. We are in the business, after all, of live experiences, but as we wait for our time to celebrate together once again in the flesh, we extended our stages to virtual platforms to continue what we do best. Now, in the recent months, we've witnessed, attended, or even some of you have mounted virtual event production. This event produced and attended purely online, like this web series. Now, nothing can really substitute live experiences, but virtual event productions make it possible for people to gather and celebrate in the digital sphere. Next up is the multi-platform. Allowing video shoot productions was a big win not only for the video and film industry, but also for us. Following FDCP's Joint Administrative Order 001 enabled us to mount multi-platform event productions, events that are produced and shot on a physical venue and then broadcasted for the online audience. So that's the second type. And next, we are going to see a hybrid. Soon, when audiences are allowed to be back in our event places again, we can have audiences both live and online. This is called the hybrid event production, live and virtual combined. Having these options create more opportunities for event agencies, organizers, producers, suppliers, talents, and freelancers to, of course, bounce back. Now, to go into detail about how live events incorporated FDCP's JAO 001, let us all welcome Film Development Council of the Philippines Chairperson and CEO, Ms. Lisa Dino. Hi, Lisa. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lexi. On behalf of the FDCP, I'd like to thank NLEC for the opportunity to share with our viewers the wisdom on how the DOLE FDCP DOH Joint Administrative Order was created and how NLEC had become very, very instrumental in expanding the coverage of the JAO to allow more sectors within the audiovisual industry to resume operations. I'll take you back 3 months ago. On April 20, the Film Development Council of the Philippines hosted the AV industry stakeholders town hall via Zoom with the theme Economic Impact of COVID-19 Pandemic to the Film and Audiovisual Industry, Survival, Recovery, and Shifting to the New Normal. We had a close to 100 attendees, making it one of the largest attendance of an FDCP-hosted AV industry meeting with representatives from production, distribution companies, creative guilds, institutions, fundraising groups, film festivals, content platforms, and government agency. It was actually an opportunity to understand that the film and audiovisual industry is a big industry and that there are a lot of allied sectors that are working within this parameter. So holding the virtual town hall was an excellent way to introduce the AV industry to government agencies as well. As mentioned by Congressman Toff, this is actually an amazing opportunity now for a lot of different government agencies to see that the audiovisual industry is very big. Led by, of course, Kong Toff de Venecia, the AV industry engaged with the Department of Labor and Employment, Department of Health, DSWD, DTI, Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, DICT, or the Department of Information and Communications Technology, and the National Commission for Culture and the Arts. Of course, among the urgent concerns of the AV industry that needs to be addressed are the policies for production shoots and barrier measures during live events. And during that time, the DOH already presented a baseline protocol on how we are going to help industries reopen. So there was actually a baseline protocol for cinemas and live events, and a baseline protocol for the film shoots. So this was actually a good start for us to streamline the certain protocols and health standards through more consultations and discussions. So the industry's stakeholders town hall was one of the first of many discussions within the industry. We had succeeding pocket meetings that will not just tackle how to overcome COVID-19, but to really talk about how to incorporate proper working conditions with these protocols. And this is how the Department of Health, the Department of Labor and Employment, and the FDCP work together. On June 7, 2020, the Department of Health, Department of Labor and Employment, Department, and the FDCP released the Joint Administrative Order on the health and safety protocols for the conduct of film and audiovisual production shoots and audiovisual activities during COVID-19 pandemic. The JAO is a tripartite government issuance that sets the minimum public health and safety standards that production shoots must abide by in order to ensure that all film and audiovisual content workers are protected as operations resume during the pandemic. As line agencies cover all sectors, as mentioned a while ago by DOH and DOLE, the FDCP cooperated with them. And we served as a participating agency in providing context, inputs, and recommendations on the health and safety guidelines governing film and audiovisual production activities. Because of this JAO, when it was released, live events found an opportunity to actually migrate and transform their usual live events into multi-platform events. And I remember that we had this meeting with NLEC, and they were saying, how can we fit into the JAO? Because this is an opportunity for our industry to actually restart, even if MGCQ pa lalabas or magkakaroon ng opportunity para mag-open ulit ang live events. So we consulted with our agency partners on how we can contextualize or expand the coverage of the audiovisual of the JAO to cover the live events industry. So on June 27, with a goal to clarify and allow the sectors within the audiovisual industry to resume operations, as well as reiterate the salient points in the JAO, the FDCP released Advisory Number 6. So this allows for a contextualization and an expansion of the coverage of who can actually make use of the JAO so that they can already resume operations. So just to put context on the responsibilities of the different agencies in terms of the JAO, the DOH is in charge of updating and communicating basic health and safety standards. The DOLE is at the helm of inspection, penalties, regulation to make sure that there is compliance to the provisions of the Joint Admin Order. The FDCP's role is to man the project registration and coordinate the production details to the different production registration forms submitted to us to LGUs, DOLE, and the DOH. So while FDCP recognizes that it covers only the film industry, DOLE and DOH covers all sectors in terms of the implementation of their mandate. And sectors outside of the film industry with similar parameters on the conduct of production shoots and related activities are covered by the JAO. The monitoring tool that we used in making sure that it's not going to be as tedious and all the forms will be funneled into one central document. FDCP created the Safe Filming Program. It is in partnership with the DOLE and DOH that will take the strategies and guidelines of the FDCP JAO and create a global resource website that outlines the principle of safe production, and provide information about systems, resources, forms, and all related documents and issuances to ensure working safely in Philippines for both local and international film productions. It will also be a platform for an active collaboration with stakeholders to share best practices and updates, especially with the constant assessment and management of risks of infection transmission. Regardless of the format, film, TV show advertising, as long as workers are physically present in a production site to shoot content, they must subscribe to the JAW's safety and health guidelines. It does not cover, though, online video conferencing meetings that takes place in Zoom or Skype and other platforms, or virtual events that involve people interacting in a virtual environment rather than meeting in a physical location. This is an evolving situation. The agencies, especially kanina narinig nyo sila, we are here to ensure and we are here to assure that the film and audiovisual industry all of your concerns will be heard by these agencies. The goal for us is to work together and to understand the provisions of the JAW so that we can really ensure the safety and health of our workers. FDCP is always welcome to your suggestions, and we are welcoming proposals for an even more comprehensive set of guidelines for the protection and welfare of the film and audiovisual industry workers and the families involved. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Miss Lisa Dino. Thank you so much for helping NLEC PH, because you seem to have all of your systems in place, so we can definitely make use of it. So thank you very much for that as well. Now, as of today, Live Events Industries Joint Administrative Order allowing us to operate is still in the works. But for the meantime, in partnership with the Film Development Council of the Philippines, event agencies are following FDCP's JAW 001 to mount virtual event production and multi-platform event production. Joining us in our discussion of what are the possible events now are NLEC members who have successfully mounted virtual and multi-platform event productions following safety protocols. Let's now welcome freelance production manager and partner in FOH Event Logistics Handling, Security and Safety Setup, Arlene D. Ko. We also have lighting designer Shakira Villa Symes.
Good evening, everybody.
With us also is audio engineer and vice president of Force Inc. That is Justin Santos.
Evening, everybody. Thank you all.
Hi, Justin. And finally, we have the founder and president of the National Event Safety Association, Rico Santiago. Thanks for being with us, Rico.
Good evening, everyone.
And also joining us once again are the guest representatives from the FDCP and DOLE. Hello again to Ms. Lisa Dino and to Mr. Nicanor Bon. Thank you so much for staying with us for this panel discussion. So at this point, we just like to ask all of those who have come up with virtual events, how from inception to actual staging, what some of the challenges involved, how was your process, and was it very, very successful? Anybody can take the floor.
The last one we did was actually a virtual launch. It's a multi-platform. We had the live streaming at the same time. We had pre-recorded interviews that we did in a big venue. It's actually a Wigo launch. We just did it last June, and we have coordinated this with FDCP as well and the NLEC group, and it was a successful one. Rico was there with me. I was actually part of the safety implementation, and Rico is our safety officer in charge at the time.
Was it difficult to get all of the safety protocols in place? Because from what I remember from all of the other events that we used to do, perhaps safety wasn't necessarily top of mind.
Yes, it was actually most of the corporate shows before this new normal thing. It was not, they don't really do security. Like, we just do launches on our own. We do it in hotels, we do it in venues. Security and safety is not actually a part of it, except if there are hotels who require it. But now, because of this, we have actually, Rico and I have worked on a safety measure which aligned with the FDCP guidelines as well. And one by one, we have gathered all the possible information, and we have hired medical practitioners at the venue. We have security marshals. It was not hard because we're used to doing it. Like I've been doing outdoor safety security concerts even before. The only add-on now is like we have to add on the PPEs, we have to add on the doctors on board, and to have to make sure that there's health declaration forms. That are new things that we also actually do when we go out. I mean, when we go to banks, we also register now, unlike before. So it's actually something that we do on a regular basis when we go out. That we just need to make it better when we do events, because it's when we do shoots now, because it's it's work. It's there's this always this thing that makes us feel like we're not safe because it's a virus. It's not something that you can see. So it's hard. It's not really hard on our part because we've been doing it, but actually explaining it to people, I think, and the crew, to make sure that they are not, they're doing it the right way, is makes it harder because, syempre, they're not used to do social distancing. They're not used to wearing masks all the day, all the time. So that's a challenge for us, but we worked out well. Rico,
So
you want
Rico,
to?
yeah, Rico, maybe you can share your experience, because I guess, everyone's also traversing this new normal. And we're just all trying to get through it together.
Yeah. When we launched the WeGo about a few weeks ago, Arlene and I worked together practically about a whole week just to make sure that everything from the JAO, all the protocols were followed. So we took it step by step, one by one, and then we also added our own additional safety protocols on top of that, because we wanted to know, we wanted to see that this is going to be a foolproof event. Um, like for example, one of the ones that we added there was the changing of the shirts for people that are coming in to do the ingress. Right, they are required as a policy to exchange your shirt with a fresh one, and to change their masks before they come in. So we have a bin where they can throw away the mask, right? And then we will give them a brand new mask so that when they come in, and the mask there is only good for 4 hours. Then after 4 hours, we actually tell them to exchange. The other problem that not a problem, but the other additional measures that we took were all the safety team there were carrying alcohol sprays, and we just kept going around and spraying everybody's hand, because when you're working and you're busy with the new norm, you tend to forget about sanitizing. So we just kept walking around and spraying everybody's hands, spraying doorknobs, spraying walls, whatever. We just kept spraying, right? So it was successful, right? It was successful, and everything went well for that event, and I'm looking to improve it more, add more safety to it, and possibly get the numbers down so everybody can start.
All right, well, maybe let's talk now to Justin and Shari. At this point, in terms of conceptualization, because we just talked about what happened on the ground for their event. Well, on the virtual ground for their event. But for the conceptualization, how different it is it knowing that it's not going to be a live event, knowing that it's a virtual, and then of course eventually the hybrid, that's a whole other world. So does it actually open up new forms of conceptualizing events?
As far as my role as an audio engineer, Lexi, we had to put on the hat of a broadcast engineer. We're not only mixing for people within the venue to be able to work, but we're also mixing for the broadcast feed for people you don't see. So in a way, it's a little harder because you don't see audience reactions. Na parang, did that sound good? You just have to make the judgment calls, and you have to design your audio in a way that would be appealing to the people watching at home or wherever they are. And yeah, just being able to adjust to that has been really cool. I've seen a lot of people in the industry stepping up, sharing their talents, their knowledge on these matters, and it really helped a lot of us be able to pull off that launch.
In terms of lighting design, it is very challenging, but it gives you a very creative way. Actually, TV television experience comes into play when it comes to lighting design, because you have to check how the light affects the camera, but it should really challenge and help inspire our lighting designers to play to the screens. I just want to add, based on my experience, that how the JAO has been very helpful, and it aims to protect the workers, because it focuses on ground zero at the ingress, when everything is at play, when everything is being set up. This where the JAO is really concerned about the safety of every worker, the safety of every lighting supplier, audio person that goes to the venue. I want to stress this out to everybody based on experience from the virtual event I just had, that you have to have the JAO in place, because the war starts before the actors come in, before every piece of set and every piece of truss and lighting is mounted. The people behind these, you know that they will be protected. You know that their names have been given to the production, and you know that the safety officer is there to guide them.
Exactly. I mean, safety is yes.
Yeah, safety is paramount, and it all starts before the actual show. It's there to guide all the workers. It's there to protect all the workers, and with the proper implementation of these guidelines, I think we can safely mount a lot of virtual events from here on. If we think about the creativity side of it, we can apply this to theater, whether it's a green screen or we can explore a lot of possibilities during this interim solution in this pandemic. I just want to add that the best practice really, in mounting the first virtual event was the Toyota Wigo launch that Rico, Santiago, Arlene, and Justin were involved in.
All right. Thank you very much for that. So at this point, in your presentation earlier, Chair Lisa, you have shared that NLEC Ph asked if they could follow and apply FDCP's JAO 001 for shoots and mounting event. And with that, and production point. Now, event organizers or agencies use FDCP's JAO 001 in mounting multi-platform events. Will they be under FDCP's regulation?
It's very clear that the role of the FDCP is to just collect the project registration forms. So para kaming kaming coordinator sa lahat ng mga big agencies namin. So kami yung frontliner, kumbaga, kasi sa amin sinasubmit yung project registration form. Kung merong mga request yung mga live events or meron silang, for example, hindi sila pinayagan ng isang LGU, will be able to actually support and help these productions also. So the goal of the FDCP is to coordinate with the different government agencies for the safe conduct of the shoots of these productions. So once na it's with us, meron kaming back-end channel where we work with the Bureau of Working Conditions, and meron kaming channel with the DOH, and now we're creating this unit with the DILG where we submit itong mga project registration forms ninyo. So this is important because in the event of an infection or halimbawang merong mangyari doon sa mga production shoots, it's gonna be a lot easier for the LGUs to coordinate with the different government agencies in mitigating and contact tracing, especially yung mga workers natin na iba't ibang location yung shoots. So imagine different LGUs not knowing na in these locations, in those 10 days, nagpunta silang lahat. Isang production, nagpunta dun sa lahat sa location na yon, and on the 10th day, nagkaroon ng COVID yung isang worker. Wag naman sana mangyari. How are we going to make sure that this is going to be streamlined? So mahalaga na pag nasa FDCP yung major or parang master copy, it's easy for us to contact or coordinate with all of the different LGUs kung saan nag-shoot itong production na to para ma-contact trace natin lahat ng possible na exposed na workers, and they can proceed with the proper quarantine procedures. So this is our role. Our role is not regulation. It's DOLE who's going to do the inspection. It's DOLE who's going to do the insurance, ensuring the compliance to the joint admin protocols.
Now, before booking and production teams and suppliers, it was somehow easy because you secure the availability, you check the requirements, agree on the terms, and then pretty much you just show up to the event. But now, how is contracting a supplier or talent different from before? Now, were the negotiations more focused on assuring their health and safety during the event? Although before it should have been a requirement as well, because really safety and health of everybody involved should be top of mind. Are there transportation requests, or are they just at work? Do you think that they are also thinking of their safety?
When we did the launch, of course, we have to coordinate with all the suppliers. What we did before, as what Justin also and Rico are aware of, we had a meeting with them by Zoom. Like we called all the supervisors, and we explained to them all the safety protocols that we're gonna implement at the venue, like the staggered schedule, like the eating will also be staggered, so that to make all the workers be patiently waiting for their turn. Like, because usually it's like going in all at the same time. That's how we use it before. Like, we're all pressed for time. So the agency, Expedia, also helped us to do this, because hand in hand, the agency was able to also explain to these suppliers, and they also booked the venue like 2 days of ingress. Like, usually we do it 12:01 until the next day, and that's it. But now they had to do it 2 days because of the curfew. And then all the other workers, which I knew, which is part of the event, also asked me, because they have this hesitation, is it safe? But when I explained to them the implementation, what we're going to implement, that we're going to have a doctor that's specializes on occupational medicine to be there. We have 2 nurses who will do a thorough physical examination prior to entry. We shared to them the health declaration forms. We shared to them all the step-by-step guidelines that we're going to do. And then we also showed them a map where we're going to have like a one-way, it's like a one-way traffic flow for everybody. And then when we go ingress, and then we actually have a disinfection team that disinfected the venue prior to the ingress. Like, I was there at 4 a.m. just to make sure that the place is disinfected. Even if the venue said they already did their own disinfection, we had to make sure that it's actually, and then we had the disinfection team stay the entire time, so that everybody coming in, even all the equipment coming in, even if the suppliers already disinfected them, which they showed us in video. We asked them to just send us all the videos to make sure that they also disinfected prior to load in. When they arrived at the venue, we disinfected again the equipment. So everybody felt safe. There was hesitation at first when they didn't know what's going to happen. Are we safe? Are we going to be safe? But when we explained it to them, this is what we're going to do, they felt safe. Even when they arrived there at the venue, they felt safe, and they don't feel that they're gonna get sick after.
Right. I mean, I guess communication is really key. Everyone just has to be aware of what exactly happening. But it was mentioned in the interim guidelines on workplace prevention and control of COVID-19 of the DTI and DOH that it is up to the discretion of the employers to mandate rapid or PCR testing before resuming work. Now, did you and your team undergo testing, or is anyone going into the venue required to take a rapid test in these cases?
Alexi, I could answer that one.
Arlene, yes, sure. Justin, you can go ahead.
Yeah. So I work for a company called Force Inc. And although it was not mandated by the security plan to do rapid testing, we did rapid testing on our employees before we did this project. As mentioned by Doc Bev earlier, it's not a 100% gold standard because that's for the PRC testing. However, rapid testing will let us know that, okay, that person might have had COVID in the past. Therefore, we can exclude him from the risk of like transmitting it should he or she be contagious still. So aside from that, we cleaned our equipment in the warehouse before leaving, and it was cleaned again upon entry. I was really surprised even when we got there, like they had the doctor on standby by the entrance of the venue, and you were really not allowed by RICO's marshals to go in without going through that doctor first. So what happened actually was that I had crew that was sent home. They were sent home not because they were contagious for COVID, but because their blood pressure was high that day. So even as simple as that, they were looking into na, okay, may ubo ka ba? How do you feel today? Do you think you're fit to work? Nahilo ka ba? Gutom ka? And all that stuff. And I think that's the kind of safety that we need in the industry. It's more of a holistic safety procedure rather than just the safety that we've come to implement in the industry. So all of this actually brought about a lot of good and positive change for the industry. As Arlene mentioned, we had ample time to set up the event. And as such, we were not tired. And we know that if you're tired, that's when your immune system goes down. That's when you can catch a cold and other sicknesses. We also added like different protocols as far as doing our jobs. So as sound engineers, we handle the microphones of talents and the like. Back in the old days, it's easy for somebody to share a microphone. But now, since there could be like laway or droplets in the mic, we made sure that mics were not labeled just 1, 2, 3, 4. It was labeled per name of the host so that that microphone would only be used by that specific person. And then after using, we made sure to wipe it down. And if you go back into the event, you also see like a big panel. Like there were eight people from the Toyota management. What we did there, para nobody touches their microphones, we wrapped those mics in plastic pa before using. Tapos it's only when those people came in there that we removed the plastic bags para we know that it's safe, na nobody went like up to the mic and then talked on it and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm really positive in believing that the industry can adapt to change. We all understand the risks, don't get me wrong. Like it was a matter of weighing the economical and the safety aspects of this thing. On one hand, you want to be safe, but on the other, let's face the reality that people are going hungry in their homes and we have an industry to revive. Yeah.
Exactly, because it's always a question of the balance, because it's a balance of making the economy start up again and making sure that everybody is safe in the process, because we don't really see we do see surges in cases on a daily basis, and we just want to be sure that everyone's safe. Now, Mr. Bond, you've heard from Arlene, you've heard from Justin, from Rico, about the protocols that went through in terms of their particular events. What other safeguards or protocols can you suggest in terms of, making sure that everybody is safe whenever there is a live event that does happen? Sir Bon?
Yes, I would just like to share existing laws like the Occupational Safety and Health law, because it's in there. The creation, as mentioned a while ago, that there should be a safety officer. There are health personnel required, so therefore there's a safety and health committee organized. So it's actually, that would depend on the risk involved in the workplace as well as the number of workers. So that's why we cannot just have one fit all regulations. That's why it's important that the workers, the safety and health committee, discuss among themselves and try to come up with a customized program for their workers. So we cannot say that it's a different. We all know that the industry is unique, peculiar. So that's why it's important that the workers, there is a creation of a safety and health committee, wherein it involves representative from the employer, from the workers, and they discuss and talk about it. What's the proper protocol that should be implemented in establishment? So that's what I would like to emphasize. The safety officer should be actively involved, should monitor the OS program. There should be OS program customized to the need of the company. So it's not for us to determine it. It's actually up to the company based on their OS program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's both. Now, another question before work resumes. It is stated in the JAO 001 that as well. Why is it mandatory to provide reports to FDCP in terms of mounting events? I mean, because obviously you're the streamliner. You're the one that sort of helps handle the situation. So why is it necessary for these reports to be given to FDCP?
Is this for me? Okay.
Yep.
So in February 7, nagkaroon ng joint memorandum circular with FDCP and DOLE in creating minimum working conditions standards for the audiovisual, the film and audiovisual industry. This is a landmark agreement because we all know that in the last, we're already celebrating our 100 years of Philippine cinema. And talagang, siguro I would say that dahil self-regulated, nagkaroon tayo ng entrenched culture of where substandard working conditions has become a norm. So this was really an opportunity to institute reforms, and we're so happy that DOLE created and helped us in drafting this minimum working conditions, standards for working conditions for the film and audiovisual industry. And in-include nila doon yung repertorial requirements. Because sabi nga ni Sir Nick kanina, paano makakapag-inspect at may ensure na ang lahat ng productions ay sumusunod sa standards na ito kung hindi natin alam kung nasaan sila. So for example, yung nangyari kay Sir Eddie Garcia with that, had all of these protocols and standards have been in place, it would have been a lot easier to make sure that the productions are following merong safety officer, maraming mga nangyaring wala at hindi present doon sa productions na yun. So, very important yung repertorial requirements. It has already been existing in the DOLE in terms of its submission. Ang nangyari lang ngayon is in-apply natin ito dito sa JAO, where the repertorial requirements is going to be submitted to the FDCP so that we can coordinate and to make it easier for our film and audiovisual industry to coordinate. Kasi we have the partnerships among all these different agencies to coordinate and submit to them these repertorial requirements.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Lisa. Now, for the others who've held the multi-platform events, were there contact tracing forms or health declaration forms in what you did? And how did the workers receive this protocol?
Yes, we did. As mentioned a while ago, we have a doctor on duty, and they are the ones who actually interviews the workers when they come in. And we sent it over, like the health declaration, we sent it to the suppliers beforehand, so they can actually review what are the questions, so they can share it to their workers prior to the ingress schedule. We have RICO actually asked their village doctors advice in doing the health and safety declaration form before we released it. And we had a meeting, like a constant meeting, to check with the client if this is workable. And the workers are fine with it because, as I've said a while ago, we've been also doing it when we enter the mall. We also need to do those declaration forms. It's something normal now.
And
So
just
it's
to add to
already
that,
part of the norm. Yes, of course, Justin, go ahead.
yeah, at first we were like, oh, why are there like these parang requirements pa to check our health? But then when you think of it, like parang we talked about it, and then we were like, hey, that's a good thing. Like whoa, wow, there's safety people here during our ingress. That's not a common practice for live events here. Most of the time, you're just with the production, you're on your own. Pero now, come to think of it, it's a little more dangerous when you're ingressing. Like there are moving stuff. So having those doctors, actually, it wasn't just one doctor. There was like a doctor and several medical people. Arlene, were they nurses?
Yes, they were nurses.
Yeah, they were nurses. So parang yun, like you had the full-on medical team there on standby, making sure that we're all okay.
And I think Arlene said it a while ago as well that at first people had hesitations, but after a while, I mean, it became common practice already and people got comfortable with the whole setup.
Yes, I'd
Yes.
just like to add that when you're there, you tend to forget. You tend to forget social distancing because you're focused with your work. You're
Right.
more concerned with the technical aspects of the show. You're more concerned with the blocking, with the lines. A safety officer is really needed on site to remind safe spaces, to remind sanitation, to remind where to stand, where to be situated inside a venue. Because once the adrenaline comes in, you lose it. You forget. You're also excited to see each other after a long time, and then you're finally in a place together working. You tend to go near your coworker, so you forget and like, oops, hang on, let's keep distance. So a safety officer is really very important, and a safety briefing before the actual ingress is very important.
Just to add to that.
Go
Add to
ahead,
that.
Rico.
Yeah. When we do events, right? The safety aspect of the health and safety of everybody is also there, but we did not disregard the other safety factors that come with it in terms of the setup, like the safety of wearing PPEs, harnesses, the proper work shoes, right? All that other stuff was also checked, right, with everyone if they're using the right equipment to mount the trusses. Everything was there. That went on, and then at the same time, we had to manage also the social distancing of the crew, right? We had to make sure that the crew was wearing their PPEs properly, that they would not congregate together. If they were to congregate, then we made sure that we would stand by there and have alcohol sprayers on our hands just to make sure that after they lift something, we would spray them again and spray what they lifted. So it was, the the COVID safety was there, as well as the original setup safety that we always do for shows. Thank you.
Uh, I also want to emphasize na that's the reason also kung bakit yung joint administrative order napaka-importante na ma-introduce yung mga existing OSH laws and incorporated siya sa JAO. Yung mandatory presence ng OSH officers are all in the JAO kasi a lot of our film workers, a lot of our production companies are really not familiar with the RA 11058. Yun yung unang-una naming nakita na hindi nila alam that the OSH law actually applies to the production industry, the film and audiovisual industry as well. So it was very important for us to reach out to the DOLE so that we can incorporate the tenets and the salient points that are already in the RA 11058. Kasi even if we are making a health and safety protocol for the in reference to COVID-19, importante yung existing na health and safety protocols in place already in the OSH law. So right now dahil incorporated na siya, yung industry or yung mga production companies or yung industry natin na hindi alam na meron palang ganitong mga provisions in the OSH law, nai-incorporate na nila ngayon as we comply with the joint admin order and the existing provisions right now, to make sure that all of us are resuming productions and working, but ensuring the safety and health of our workers.
Well, I
I
guess
like
that's
what
the silver lining as well, because now we know that there are safety protocols in place. I mean, of course, now that it's melded with the COVID situation, but now at least alam na natin, and we comply with it. Someone else wanted to say something?
Oh yeah. So like I liked how Charliza mentioned that there are existing stuff. So like they have thick books, Lexi, you can see this one.
Mm-hmm.
This is the manual for from Dole. It's the occupational safety manual and stuff like that for health here in the
Lisa's
Philippines.
smiling. She's happy that you
Yeah, I
have
have a
it.
copy. Yeah. So we have safety officers
Good
in
student. Good student.
yeah, we have safety officers in the company so that when it comes to like accidents and stuff like that, we're ready. And we also know like the health and the risks involved when it comes to putting up these shows. And yeah, I like how Rico's team added on the COVID thing to that kasi yun nga, we're not operating only on like just a show. It's a show during a pandemic. So yeah, I think we had all the bases covered for that one.
All right. Well, we did talk already about the day itself, because a lot of times, you tend to forget that COVID is out there because you're not social distancing within the ranks, and then you also have a lot of the safety officers there. But in the end, how did your events go? Were you practicing social distancing? Did the safety officer help in terms of, you know what, guys? I know that we're getting back to normal, but let's also still remember that there's a panic happening.
Yeah. Can I answer it?
Go.
Yeah. Yes, we did. We actually we were strict at the event. We even told the one of the I would say the top executives of the client that that they have to practice social distancing, and these were the clients, and they understood. They understood, and they apologized, and we just keep forgetting because it's a new norm. We walked around a lot, made sure that everybody's more than 6 feet over there, and if they were to engage into, let's say, a small conversation, I only allowed them to stay within, let's say, 3 feet, but they had the full PPE on, which is a mask and a face shield as well, and they weren't allowed to touch. And we actually monitored all their movements. If they tend to touch something, we would just follow in the spray. Yeah, they were happy actually. Actually, the client was very happy that there were strict measures that were implemented during that shoot. Thank you.
Yeah, and
Can I add on to that too? We also had that acrylic shields in between the control booth area to make sure that, because the control booth is like you can easily talk to another person, and you're not aware that you already passed the boundary of that limitations of space. So what we did, we actually had that thing in between each, so that they are aware that they cannot pass to that shield to get to the other person. So we also had that.
yeah, to my friends in the industry or our colleagues, we're all used to having tight control booths where like we're nearly elbow to elbow with the next person. Here, imagine having a big lifetime table just for yourself, and then you have dividers on either side. So it was amazing how we had a really, really long control booth there. It was from end to end of the venue just because we had to maintain that distancing. But yeah, so yeah, communications like comsets were really a big help for that show because we were like really long. So direction was done through the headsets already.
Right. Well, Lisa seems to be happy with all of your cuento today about your events. But Lisa, in case there are any violations of the JAO 001 during production, who does it get reported to?
Dole will be the one who will implement. Maybe we can ask Sir Nick.
Sir Nick, maybe you can answer that question. If there are any violations, how do we report it?
Yes po, tama po si Ma'am Lisa. Any complaints or violations should be reported to us, to the nearest Dole Field Provincial Regional Office, so that we can act on it. We have existing laws. I cannot overemphasize that there is a law the occupational safety and health law, there are penalties if you do not comply with it. So even if there is no JAW, there are existing laws. So it's important to know that we have to have safety officer, as mentioned a while ago by Shakira, and then there are reportable requirements. Otherwise, if you do not comply with that, we can impose fine penalties. So that would be it.
All right. So finally, let's do our final words. Let's hear from everybody briefly, sort of like a post prod of what you've all gone through. Let's use this as your post production. You know, lessons learned, things that you can do better, and things that you were successful at.
I just want to add with that post prod, clients are actually proud to show off the strictness in their shows. In our event, the Sun Life, it was a Sun Life event. The client was actually proud to see that he had safety officers in place. It pleased him, it amused him that we have a temperature scanner that's automated on an iPod, and he was really checking things out. So if this is more supported out there, clients will have an open mind, and it's an open competition for all who has the best practices eventually.
Competition na. Sige na. And Lisa will be the judge. Sir Bon will be the judge. Okay, so just your parting shots and your post prods, your assessments and your highlights.
Just one thing, Lexi. With the OSH and the IRR, maybe we could collaborate with the Department of Labor and Employment, that we can have a module for pandemic risk assessment for safety officers. So most of the safety officer, most of the courses are for mining. If we can help fine tune more, that it can be industry specific, and we would like to help with that.
All right. Well, there is a question from Congressman Tof de Venecia to Sir Nick. If ever you can answer this, ask Dole to clarify how live events are categorized in the OSH law. Is it low risk, medium risk, or high risk, since the mandatory requirements change per classification?
Yes, actually, there are the kind of there are categories: the so-called high risk, medium risk, low risk. At this point, I cannot say for sure what category, but it depends on the number of workers. So it's actually, we give it back to the employer, the safety officer, to determine what category they belong. So it's actually, that's why it's the role of the safety officer is critical. He should know the workings, the workings in the company. They should talk with the safety and health committee. So that's, should it go? It should not come from us. It should come from the establishment itself, and depending on the operations. So I will go. I will return it to the company itself to determine once and for all, based on the parameters set by the Oslo, in what category they belong.
And considering it's COVID-19 right now, are all industries considered high risk because we have to take those precautions?
Technically, I wouldn't say that, but there are directives, like we have to be guided by the directives of the IATF and the DOH and other governments. So at this point, it's really risky now. So that's why we have to be guided. We have to be. This is an ongoing thing, diba? The regulation. So every day there's an update. So we have to keep ourselves with the recent developments, the IATF, the directives, and so on and so forth.
Thank you very much for that, sir. And maybe we can hear the last words from Rico and Arlene.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you know what I mean. We need to realize that this virus is everywhere. It will be here. It will be here for a while, right? The best defense for it is actually common sense, right? That is your best defense that you use to use. So I just want to remind everybody again, it is real, it is out there, and make sure that you practice all hygiene at all times. Wear your masks, wear your PPEs, right? And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Arlene?
Yes, I just wanted to say that at the end of the day, you have the guidelines, you have we're guided already by the government rules and the protocols. It is actually we also have to be responsible for our own selves, to keep us safe, and at the same time, to be responsible for others as well. Because even if the guidelines and the OSH are there, we should always be aware of our surroundings, and we should always be responsible for our own selves.
Thank you very much. And Lisa, have you spoken already? Have you given your parting shot?
Siguro gusto ko lang sabihin is FDCP is an ally, and and we're here to help you conduct your shoots. We are in terms of our mandate, kung film industry pa rin po talaga ang aming mandato. Pero ngayon po is nagpa-participate po kami para matulungan po ang iba pang industriya para makapag-open po tayo. And that is the reason why FDCP is continuously working with the different government agencies to make sure that all of us, we are all intersecting, di ba? Iisa po tayong malaking industriya, and it's always changing, it's always evolving. There's so many peculiarities. Pero ang pinaka-bottom line po natin is lahat po tayo, with whether it is the content sector or the live event sector, magkakasama po tayo dito sa malaking spectrum na to. And that's the only goal of the FDCP, to make sure that kung pwede po kayong mapasama dito sa mga protocols na ito at makapag-umpisa na po tayong lahat, magtutulungan po tayo para dito. And last po, dahil nga ang goal ng FDCP is to just really water down things and make sure that it's easy to understand, please remember remedies. So, reduce, modify, distance, install, enforce, secure. Meaning, reduce, limit, up to 50 lang po tayo, and limit working arrangement. Modify, if you need to modify your production schedule, modify your script so that we can fit into the existing restrictions of the government. Distance, no less than 1 meter. If it's an uncontrolled environment, more than 1 meter. If it's a close contact proximity, make sure that you have additional PPEs. Install, make sure you have those engineering controls. Kaya ang saya ko po kanina kay Ms. Arlene. Make sure that you have those barriers, hand washing facilities, and foot bath mats so that we can secure your surroundings and the workers. Enforce, make sure that you have orientation with the workers, you have your mandatory OSH officers, you are disinfecting the place, and there are admin controls in place, and everybody is in the know of what they should be doing and how to work around in a production shoot. And of course, secure. Wear your PPEs, disinfect the production site before and after. Thank you.
Right. So I just like to add that our industry is so big and it goes beyond putting concerts and shows. We do seminars, weddings, corporate meetings, and even stream content online that is handled by our industry. As such, we are huge. We're talking about the livelihood of thousands of workers, both formal and informal. And we're continuously looking for ways to be able to do our jobs safely. And the JAO and all of this does precisely that. Any job has risks, so we're trying to know the risks and minimize those risks continuously. At the end of the day, it's our choice or your choice to go to work or not, but we have to provide for our families either way. So we encourage all the stakeholders to get involved, talk to your leaders for proper coordination. And lastly, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time out today to listen to us. Thank you.
That was a very fun and enlightening discussion. Again, thank you very much to Mr. Bon, Lisa, Arlene, Shakira, Justin, and Rico for a very dynamic conversation. I'm sure that everything we've learned and discovered today is definitely worth your time. We hope that today's episode outlined the guidelines that the industry needs to take as we resume our operations really soon. As emphasized in earlier discussions, safety is not a job for one department alone. For us to reopen and pivot as an industry, each stakeholder must recognize that their roles extend to ensuring everyone's safety. We aim to learn and unlearn with you in the process as we venture to our industry's new normal. This web series is brought forth to effectively communicate, reach out, and learn together as an industry. This is just the beginning of our learning process. Don't forget to like and follow NLEC Ph Secretariat on Facebook. The following episodes will give us a further glimpse of what's ahead for us and help us prepare thoroughly for the reopening. Episode 2, Safety Protocols in Reopening Live Events. Episode 3 will be about the Freelancer's Guide to Going Back to Work. Episode 4, Multi-Platform Event Production, Concert, a Case Study. Episode 5, Theater Production, a Case Study. Episode 6, Multi-Platform Event Production, Fashion Show, a Case Study. We'd also like to thank once again this episode's partners, Live Events and GLPS Co. Episode partners for production and creatives, Creative Manila, Stratminds Events, Saga Events, and Extreme Manila. Let's all be inspired and inspire our fellow industry leaders and innovators. It was such a pleasure to join you this evening. This has been Lexi Schultz. Thank you, and everybody, do stay safe.